Today would have been Dad's 71st birthday. Dad visited Donnie and Linnea's family in the fall of 2013. Donnie is very thankful that they were able to get reacquainted and that Jordan and Madison, who had never met Grandpa, were able to spend a week getting to know him. While they were there, Jordan played lots of chess with Dad, Grandpa, and had the opportunity to visit with Dad in September. I had the opportunity, took off work and went down to visit with him for a couple of days to capture, in his own words, what's in a life. Dad talked about his dad. His dad worked in a shipyard during World War II. He taught in Oakland. He lived on Market Street in San Francisco. He said, "I was born in 1943 in Franklin Hospital in a big brick building. Mom and Dad were childhood sweethearts. Mom loved Dad a lot. James, Rudy, and Dorothy got married without telling anyone and went back to their families of origin for a while before telling anybody." Dad says Grandma had a nice personality and was good-looking and could have had any number of young men. James Rudy was a happy type of person. Medically, he had an enlarged heart. He was in the hospital for about a year before he died. He was 31 then, and Grandma was 28, excuse me. He said, "When my dad died, she had 3 kids. She took him back to Arkansas. She took us back to Arkansas for a year, but in Arkansas, you can't make any money to this day. So there's always been a migration from the southern states to, like Arkansas, to California. She then came back to California to live near my aunt in Hood, not in the Hood, in Hood, California, on the Sacramento River." And that's Grandma's, and that's Dad's sister. On the Sacramento River, in the middle of orchards, peach, pear, and apricot. He said, "My Uncle Paul was a carpenter, was her brother, my mom's brother, and my aunt was my father's sister, so siblings married siblings. They had 12 children, and Aunt Claudia took care of us while Mother worked. Mother got a job at a bakery in Sacramento." Dad said, "That was the situation until she met my stepfather. I have a lot of memories of Jack, and a lot of those are not very good. He was shell-shocked in World War II. You could goose him, and he would go clear through the ceiling. When he wasn't drinking, he was okay. When drinking, things were not so good. He was very abusive to me. He married Mom while she was in Hood, and we moved to Florin when I was in 2nd grade. Grandma had been single for 4 years, and she was married to Jack for 6. He built a garage that we moved into, of course, cramped space. Then he started to build the rest of the house. When he was killed in 1955, the Mormon church came out with elders, high priests, etc., and finished building the house. I was 12 years old then. The hardest thing for her were Jack and Wayne and having to deal with the bad marriages. She had 4 kids and no way to support them. That can be pretty tough. The worry from those things can be overwhelming. One time, my birthday cake wasn't a corn cake. About 4 inches in diameter with a candle in the middle. Everybody knows the story. That his kids anyway. For a young kid of 13 or 14, it was pretty disappointing. The hardest thing for me was I didn't have a father. Everything you have to learn in life, you have to learn on your own. Overall, that was the hardest thing in my life. Boy, Grandma could cook. She was a Southern gal, and they are known for their cooking. When we were poor, Dad said, she would make biscuits and gravy for breakfast. She made terrific biscuits. By the way, these words are Dad's words, which I've been typing them up. We're cool. With Jack, excuse me. With Jack, we had more money. On Saturdays, we would have a great big meal. Fried potatoes, sausage, bacon, biscuits, of course, were always a standard. So we would look forward to our Saturday meal. She was a super baker, cakes and pies. Where I fell in love with berries was in Hood. The levee for the river ran alongside the river with a railroad track on top, and at a certain place needed to turn at 90 degrees, but can't, so there was a triangular patch of land inside the railroad track the turnabout filled with berries. We would pick 2 or 3 gallon buckets of blackberries. She would make everything berry. Blackberry jam, berry cobbler, I loved her cobbler so much. My favorite berry is now boysenberry, but that's where I began to love berries. All of my memories of Hood were good. My aunt used to make great berry jam. I used to sneak in the kitchen and eat it all the time, and she would chase me away. I think he's passed on his love of berries to just about all of us too. We had a basketball hoop and a concrete driveway, and I played for hours and hours of basketball. Basketball was my favorite. In grade school, I played baseball and football too, but my greatest love was basketball. I played first string basketball. I would hitchhike to school. There were lots of farms and people. The people were really spread out. If I wanted to visit George, my friend, I would hitchhike there. On the last day of school, we would go to the park, play baseball, cook a big pot of hot dogs, throw in some onions. We would have mustard, onions, and hot dogs. That's where I got to eating the amount of mustard I eat. I eat a lot of mustard on my dogs. That was free, and the onions were free, so I pretty much eat my hot dogs the same way today. When you think you have enough mustard, you're about halfway. The onions help hold the mustard in. As a young boy in Florida, I went to the brickyard that was filled as a lake. It was about 7 miles away. I would walk there. They would have waterways from the river to the farms, sloughs totally full of frogs. I would go out from Florida with my cousins and go frogging. You fashion a pole with 3-pronged hook with a bright piece of red fabric. Once caught, stuff them in a gunny sack, and you keep the frogs about your waist. Cook their legs. They are good. They taste almost like chicken. If the water's clean, the meat's good. If the water's dirty, the meat tastes the same way. You cook the legs like chicken, but they jump around in the pan. He laughs. They are delicious. Mom appreciated how my mom, appreciated how good our dad, a cook he was, and on Thanksgiving or Christmas morning, he would cook a big breakfast for everyone. Dad then says, the day I entered the mission home in Winter Park, Florida, was the day that JFK was shot, November 21st. When I was on my mission, the mission president made a comment about me being steadfast, and during part of my life I had been that way, but during other parts I haven't. Dad's last words to Jared were to stay close to the church and stay close to family. Dad said he felt the power of the Spirit on his mission. He said, I asked the Lord for a testimony of the Scriptures, and he gave it to me. So you'll have those experiences, he said. You just have to do what he tells you. If the Lord tells you he will do something, don't worry about it. You have to do your part. Absolutely, totally the best experience you'll have. It's a little scary sometimes, but you have the Lord with you. How scary it can be. It will be one of the highlights of your life. Dad said they drafted me while I was going to BYU, and after I got home I received mail canceling the draft, and I knew it would only be a few months before they drafted me again. And during that time I met your mother at a Gleaner dance. Grandpa Hinton recalls how wonderfully polite Dad was. Especially impressed Grandpa was that Dad asked Mom to pray with him before their dates. Grandpa remembers Dad's thoughtfulness in gift-giving when Grandpa admired an old-fashioned cook stove abandoned in the woods during a camping trip. And somehow Dad made it appear on Grandpa's property soon thereafter. Or the time that Dad appeared with a giant 3 to 4 person wood swing he had built himself and hung for them in the backyard. Kelly's Michelle, appreciated his gift-giving and thought how considerate it was for him to bring her at different times flowers and cake or special treats. Hillary felt compassion from him as he mourned with her and comforted her in her trauma and brought her flowers. Jody remembers agreeably his gift-giving. He never came without gifts. I fondly remember Dad coming to my dance recital and bringing me roses while I was in high school. Well, Dad talked also about how he had friends who went to Vietnam. He said, I didn't volunteer. I thought, you must be crazy. A lot of people come back in little black body bags. So instead he said I enlisted in the Army and spent 5 years in Germany. I got out of the Army and I tried life insurance. It takes about 5 years to build up the business, but you'll starve to death by then. I had a family to feed. So working as a carpenter, I could make more money than in the electronics. The Army doesn't train you for civilian electronics. I would have had to go back to school, but I had a family to feed. I worked as a carpenter because it paid the best. I worked a lot. When I needed more money, I would take a side job, a patio an addition, add a bathroom for somebody, hang a door, put on a bay window. I asked Dad, what were your happiest memories with the family? He said, it's primarily with the kids. I enjoy taking the kids out to the park, playing on the swings. Our mom, appreciates how when we were little, Dad played with us, dancing in the living room, playing ball, rolling around on the floor. Tessa loves how Dad used to tell her stories and sing to her before bed. He would sing, "You're My Sunshine," and she said now that's her go-to song when something's tough and she needs her mind to be freed up with more positive thoughts. I also remember Dad's penchant for storytelling. He would let us gather around him at night before bed. We each got to choose one animal with which he would weave into a story for the night. I love the memory of Dad rocking me and singing to me tenderly in the chair, comforting me with my bandaged hand after I smashed my fingers in the car door at the tender age of 4 or 5. Kelly loves when we were when they were gifted a surfboard from Dad's co-worker, the Chinaman. They knocked off work early for the day, tried their hand at surfing for the day in Santa Cruz, and finally decided they needed to do something else with their lives. But not before they appreciated the time that Dad spent with them in play. Andy loved the time Dad called him up while he was slaving away washing dishes at Carl's Jr. Want to go to a baseball game? Huh? Want to go to a World Series game? Andy recalls he didn't have tickets, but sure enough, they bought scalp tickets for $40 each for the 1989 game for the World Series at Candlestick Park and had a fabulous time. Ben counts among his favorite memories of Dad sharing ball games as well. Soraya admired his creative construction work on gingerbread houses and how he worked at to create Tootsie Roll fences and embellishments. She appreciates the effort he and Mom put into making and selling gingerbread houses in order to help pay for Christmas for the children. She has carried on the tradition of gingerbread house making during the Christmas season with her own family, building happy family memories. Dad talks about how he and Mom would take us on special trips like to Marriott's Great America. We'd go once a year, we'd save all our money, we'd go down there early and be there when they opened and be there till they closed. On Tuesday, he said you could get on the ride and get off the ride and get back on. You got 10 times the fun on Tuesday. Usually I would go with the big kids and your mom, he said, would go with the little kids. Your mom would take them to the kiddie place. We'd meet at lunch, get the handstand, go out to the car, eat lunch, then we'd meet at supper time again. When the park closed, we would meet again and go home. Dad said, I asked Dad, remember you would take us up to the snow? We didn't own any snow clothes, so we would put bread bags over our shoes, rubber banded. You would get inner tubes and we would have hot chocolate and donuts. Dad said, yeah, the hot chili was good. Your mother fixed all that stuff and got it ready. We would go camping, Dad said, and we would get rained on almost every time. Andy professes his love for camping and the outdoors from all the camping we did as a family, rain or no. Ben laughs when he remembers camping at Lions Lake and how he kept falling in and how much fun they had canoeing. Eventually we moved to Shingle Springs. That was a pretty 5 acres, he said. All you kids seem to love it. I'm sorry that we couldn't keep it. But we were in a recession and it leveled off. I thought the recession would go up next, but the recession didn't go up, it went down. I had taken a second mortgage, no work to speak of. That's why we lost the house. Probably lost about $50,000. Rusty remembers and passes on this life lesson from Dad and to his children. Sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. I built a little bridge over the small creek that ran into the big creek, but I had the walls insulated to R38, ceiling R50. Roger doesn't know so. He doesn't develop that. I mean, you could heat that thing with a match. I mean, it was really well insulated. We had the wood stove up in the living room. I had a distribution fan to blow the heat into the kitchen, master bedrooms, and all the bathrooms. And so bedroom and all the kids' bedrooms down below. I heated that thing with wood scraps one winter, never did turn on the furnace that year, but I had a furnace, and I could have. I wanted to use my skills and talents to provide for the family, and up on the 5 acres was really great for the kids. We raised pigs, chickens, rabbits. I learned to raise chickens and rabbits from my mom. My mother raised chickens and rabbits. She would raise 2 kinds of chickens, Friars and Rhode Island red hens that were the egg layers. For a while I was going all the way to San Jose. I didn't like it, but you know I had to provide for the family. It was a good job and they liked my work. I was a good worker, efficient, smart about how things go together. Over time I became a master carpenter. You take your best shot and then you have to move on. I'm not sure. I had to keep my nose to the grindstone so much I'm not sure there was much else in my vision. I had a whole bunch of people to feed and take care of. We moved to Tracy and there was a 3-bedroom house and I made a small addition to it. I extended the kitchen. Dad was an excellent craftsman, a hard worker, so many people say, and proud of his work. Rusty so much appreciates Dad helping him in the last few months rewire his whole house as the last gift. Dad said, before you're married, you might think you know how, but after you're married, you find out you didn't really know anything. Dad said, after I got divorced, I would go to see his mom, Grandma Watson, about once a year in Rancho Cordova. No matter how dreary things were, I could get her laughing. One of those laughs where your gut hurts. It was good to get with her and hear her laugh. Everything I need from her is here, she said. Her sweet nature. Somehow, I am able to look at the lighter side of things in most cases. Being able to find, Dad says, humor in a situation that is sad or serious, keep things on the lighter side. That has helped carry me through. Melissa was impressed by his positive, cheery attitude every morning as he greeted her with a happy good morning and a smile. Dad said, I moved to Nevada, there to be closer to the kids. I met Mary there. I met her at the post office on a Sunday. I went over to the post office. I was coming out. She was going in. We passed each other, and after a few steps, I stopped and asked, excuse me, I'd like to go to the movies this afternoon. I would like to have someone to go with. Would you like to go with me? And so she took my cell number and went home and called her mom in LA and talked to her about it. And her mother said, why not? Your husband's been dead for 5 years. I met her in '96, and she died in '99. What's in a life? Dad had a simple and a humble beginning. He had a great love for his mother and wonderful skills at building things. He had many difficult trials, but Dad's greatest legacy is his children. Soraya, Donnie, me, Andy, Rusty, Kelly, Jared, Ben, Tessa, and all the posterity now and to come. So far, 46 descendants. Mosiah 4:19, for behold, are we not all beggars? Do we not all depend on the same being, even God, for all the substance which we have? Both for food and raiment, for gold and silver, and for all the riches which we have of every kind. Let us go forward, remembering to forgive quickly, to take offense slowly, to ignore the broken gate and admire the flowers in the window.